Picture this. You're alone in your school at night. The lights are off. Every sound makes you jump. Every shadow looks like something waiting for you. Now imagine if those shadows were real. Imagine if something was actually watching you. These 5 stories are about students who found out exactly what hides in schools after dark. And I promise you, after hearing these stories, you'll never want to stay late at school again. Story 1. The Basement Classroom. Sarah was just trying to study. That's all she wanted to do. She was 17 years old, living in Michigan back in 1997. Sarah was the kind of student every parent wants. She studied hard. She got good grades. She never got in trouble. But sometimes being a good student can put you in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a Tuesday night in October. The leaves outside had turned orange and red. The days were getting shorter. By 6 o'clock, it was already dark outside. But Sarah didn't mind. She liked the quiet library. She could focus better when no one else was around. The old Riverside High School had the perfect library for studying. Big wooden tables, soft yellow lights, rows and rows of books that smelled like dust and old paper. The school was built in 1923. That means it was really, really old. The walls were made of thick red bricks. The floors were made of wood that creaked when you walked on it. Every room had those tall windows that you see in old movies, the kind of windows that rattle when the wind blows. The building had 3 floors and a basement. Nobody really used the basement anymore. It was mostly for storage. Old desks, broken chairs, things nobody wanted but nobody wanted to throw away either. Mrs. Henderson was the librarian. She was about 60 years old with gray hair that she always kept in a bun. She wore glasses on a chain around her neck. She was nice to Sarah. She trusted her. That's why she let Sarah stay late to study. Before she left that night, Mrs. Henderson walked over to Sarah's table. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the wooden floor. "I'm heading home now, dear," she said. Her voice was warm and kind. "You have the spare key, right?" Sarah looked up from her math book and smiled. "Yes, Mrs. Henderson. I'll lock up when I leave." Mrs. Henderson picked up her purse and her coat. Then she stopped. She turned back to Sarah with a strange look on her face. It was like she just remembered something important. "Sarah, don't go down to the basement tonight." Sarah felt confused. Why would she need to go to the basement? All her books were right here. Why? What's in the basement? Sarah asked. "They're doing some work down there. Construction. It's not safe. Just stay up here, okay?" Sarah nodded. "Of course. I'll just stay in the library." Mrs. Henderson smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She looked worried about something. But then she left, and Sarah heard her footsteps fade away down the hall. Then she heard the main door close with a heavy thud. Now Sarah was alone in the school. At first, everything was normal. Sarah opened her calculus textbook to page 237. She had a big test coming up on Friday. She needed to understand derivatives. She worked through problem after problem. The only sounds were her pencil scratching on paper and the old clock on the wall ticking away. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 7:30. Sarah's eyes were getting tired. She stood up to stretch. That's when she heard it for the first time. It was a dragging sound, like someone pulling something heavy across the floor, but it was slow, really slow, like whoever was doing it was trying to be quiet. Sarah froze. She listened hard. The sound was coming from below her, from the basement. Her first thought was that it must be the construction workers Mrs. Henderson mentioned. But construction workers don't work at 7:30 at night, and they definitely don't work in the dark. Sarah hadn't seen any lights on in the basement when she arrived. The dragging sound stopped. Sarah waited, holding her breath. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes, nothing. She sat back down and tried to focus on her math homework. But she couldn't concentrate. Every little sound made her jump. The wind outside, the old building settling, her own heartbeat that seemed way too loud. 20 minutes later, she heard it again. This time it was different. It wasn't just dragging. It was footsteps too, slow, heavy footsteps, and they were coming up the basement stairs. The basement door was at the end of the hall, maybe 50 feet from the library. Sarah knew she should pack up and leave. Every part of her brain was screaming at her to get out, but she tried to be logical. Maybe it was the janitor. Maybe he was working late. Maybe there was a perfectly normal explanation. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Then they stopped. Sarah waited. The silence was worse than the noise. At least when there were footsteps, She knew where the person was. Now they could be anywhere. Her phone rang. The sudden noise in the quiet library made Sarah scream. She knocked her books off the table. They hit the floor with loud bangs that echoed through the empty room. With shaking hands, she grabbed her phone. "Hello?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "Sarah? Honey, are you okay?" It was her mom. Sarah had never been so happy to hear her mother's voice. "Mom." "Yes, I'm at school. In the library. You're still there?" "Sarah, you need to come home right now." Something in her mom's voice made Sarah's stomach drop. Her mom sounded scared. "Why? What's wrong?" "I just saw it on the news. There's a man. He escaped from Riverside Psychiatric Hospital this afternoon. The police are looking for him." Sarah's whole body went cold. The psychiatric hospital was only 3 miles from the school. 3 miles. That's nothing. Someone could walk that in less than an hour. "They said he's dangerous, Sarah. Very dangerous. He hurt 3 guards when he escaped. Just come home now, please." "I'm leaving right now," Sarah said. She started throwing her books into her backpack. Her hands were shaking so bad she could barely zip it closed. "Good. Call me when you get to your car. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." Sarah hung up and grabbed her bag. She had to walk past the basement door to get to the main exit. As she stepped out of the library, she looked down the long, dark hallway. The basement door was at the end, barely visible in the shadows. But something was wrong. The door was open, not all the way open. Just a crack, maybe 6 inches. But Sarah knew it had been closed when Mrs. Henderson left. She was sure of it. And from that crack came a smell. It was awful, like something rotting, like meat that had been left out too long. And underneath that smell was something else. Something metallic. Like pennies. Like blood. Sarah started walking fast. Not running, not yet. She told herself if she stayed calm, everything would be okay. She just had to walk past the door and get to the exit. 20 feet from the door. 15 feet. 10 feet. The door exploded open. It slammed against the wall so hard that the sound echoed through the whole building like thunder. Sarah screamed and started running. Behind her, she heard laughter. But it wasn't normal laughter. It was broken. Wrong. High-pitched and then low, like someone was playing with the dial on a radio. "Where are you going?" a voice called out. It was a man's voice, but it sounded weird. Like he was talking through water. "Don't you want to play?" "I've been waiting for someone to play with." Sarah ran faster than she'd ever run in her life. Her backpack bounced against her back. Her feet pounded on the old wooden floor. Behind her, she could hear him following. His footsteps were heavy and uneven, like he was limping. But he was fast. "Really fast. Ring around the rosy," he sang. But the words were all mixed up and wrong. "Pocket full of knives. Blood! Blood! We all fall down!" Sarah reached the main doors. She grabbed the handle and pulled. Nothing. The doors were locked. Of course they were locked. She had the key. Mrs. Henderson had given her the key. But where was it? Her pockets? Her backpack? The footsteps were getting closer. And now she could hear breathing. Wet, ragged breathing, like someone with water in their lungs. Sarah's fingers finally found the key in her jacket pocket. But her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't get it in the lock. The key scraped against the metal, missing the keyhole again and again. "Found you," the voice said. He was close. So close she could smell him. That rotting smell was overwhelming now. The key finally went in. Sarah turned it and threw the door open. Cold October air hit her face. She ran out into the night and didn't stop running. She ran down the street, across the parking lot, through the park. She ran until she reached the gas station 2 blocks away. She burst through the door, crying and gasping for air. The teenager working behind the counter jumped up, knocking over his coffee. "Call 911, Sarah screamed. "There's someone in the school, please." The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. 5 cop cars with their lights flashing blue and red in the darkness. They went into the school with their guns drawn. Sarah waited in the back of a police car, wrapped in a blanket, still shaking. An hour later, Detective Morrison came to talk to her. He was an older man with kind eyes and a gray mustache. He sat down next to her and pulled out a notebook. "Sarah, we found him," he said gently. "You did? Did you arrest him?" The detective nodded. "His name is Thomas Brennan, age 43. He's been a patient at Riverside Psychiatric Hospital for 8 years. He has severe mental illness. He hears voices, sees things that aren't there. He escaped this afternoon by hiding in a delivery truck. What was he doing in the school? Sarah asked. Detective Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, We found where he'd been staying. In the basement. Sarah, he'd been there for 3 days. Sarah felt sick. 3 days. He'd been in the school for 3 days. While students were going to classes. While she was studying in the library. He got in through a broken window in the basement. The detective continued. He'd made himself a kind of nest down there. We found food wrappers, water bottles, and other things. What other things? The detective looked uncomfortable. Pictures, Sarah. Dozens of pictures. Pictures of what? Of students. Pictures taken from inside the school. Some were taken during classes through the door windows. Some were taken in the hallways. And Sarah, he paused, we found 23 pictures of you. All taken while you were studying in the library. Some from last night, some from last week. He'd been watching you. Sarah's mom arrived then and took her home. Sarah never went back to Riverside High School. She finished her senior year through homeschooling. She went to college in another state. She became a teacher herself, but she never stays late at school. Never. Thomas Brennan was sent back to the psychiatric hospital. They put him in maximum security this time. But here's the part that still haunts Sarah, even all these years later. When they asked him why he was in the school, why he was watching the students, he said something that made even the experienced detectives uncomfortable. He said, The voices told me to find the special one, the one who could see them too. I found her, Sarah, she can see them, and now they can see her. They'll always be watching her now. The doctor said it was just his illness talking, just delusions. But sometimes, even now, 25 years later, Sarah feels like someone's watching her. And sometimes, late at night, she hears that broken laughter and that wrong song. Ring around the rosy, we all fall down. Story 2. The Swimming Pool. Have you ever been swimming alone? Really alone? When the pool is empty and every splash echoes off the walls? When you can hear your own breathing and nothing else? Akiko Tanaka loved that feeling. She loved the peace of being alone in the water. But in November of 2003, she learned that some places should never be visited alone, and some waters hide more than just chlorine and tiles. Akiko was 16 years old. She went to Yamamoto Academy in Tokyo, Japan. It was one of those fancy private schools where rich kids go, the kind with perfect uniforms and perfect grades and perfect futures all planned out. Akiko wasn't rich, though. She was there on a swimming scholarship. She was fast. Really fast. Olympic-level fast. That's why she got up every morning at 4:30 a.m. to practice. The pool at Yamamoto Academy was beautiful. It was built in 1962, indoor and heated. The tiles were bright blue and white, making patterns like waves on the bottom. The ceiling was high with big windows that let in natural light during the day. At night, powerful lights lit up the water, making it glow like liquid crystal. The air always smelled like chlorine, but Akiko loved that smell. To her, it smelled like home. November in Tokyo is cold. That morning, November 13th, was especially cold. Akiko could see her breath as she walked from the train station to school. The streets were empty. The sky was still dark. Most people were still sleeping. But not Akiko. Champions don't sleep. Champions train. She used her key to enter through the side door. The school was silent. Her footsteps echoed in the empty hallways. She knew this route by heart. Down the main hall, turn left at the trophy case, through the double doors, down the stairs to the pool area. She'd done it hundreds of times. The changing room was cold. Akiko changed quickly into her black racing suit. She grabbed her goggles and her towel and pushed through the door to the pool area. That's when she stopped. Something was wrong with the water. The pool water was black. Not dirty black. Not muddy black. Black like ink. Black like oil. Black like nothing she'd ever seen before. The powerful overhead lights were on, shining down on the pool, but the light seemed to stop at the water's surface. It didn't penetrate. The water just swallowed the light. Akiko walked closer. Her bare feet made wet slapping sounds on the tile floor. She must be seeing things. Maybe the lights were broken. Maybe there was a power problem. She flipped the switch for the underwater lights. They came on. She could see them glowing on the sides of the pool. But the water stayed black. She knelt down at the edge of the pool. Up close, the water looked normal. Clear. blue. She could see the bottom. She could see the lane lines. But when she stood up and looked at the whole pool, it was black again. Akiko was logical. She was scientific. She didn't believe in ghosts or monsters or any of that stuff. There had to be an explanation. Maybe someone had put dye in the water as a prank. Maybe there was some kind of chemical reaction. She dipped her hand in the water. It felt normal. The right temperature, no weird texture. She decided to test it. She would just put her feet in first, just to see. She sat on the edge of the pool and slowly lowered her legs into the water. The water was freezing, not cool. Not cold, freezing, like ice, so cold it burned. Akiko gasped and tried to pull her legs out, but something was wrong. The water was holding her. Not like something grabbing her, more like the water itself had become thick, like jelly, like tar. She pulled harder, and her legs came free with a wet sucking sound. She scrambled back from the edge, breathing hard. Her legs were bright red from the cold. They hurt, they burned. But the pool thermometer on the wall showed 28 degrees Celsius. That's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect swimming temperature. Akiko should have left. She should have run out of there and never come back. But she was an athlete. Athletes don't quit. Athletes don't give up. And she had a competition in 3 weeks. She needed to train. She stood up. She walked to the diving block at the deep end. She put on her goggles. She told herself she was being silly. It was just water, just a swimming pool. She'd swum in this pool 1,000 times. She dove in. The cold hit her like a wall. Every part of her body screamed in pain. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that she kept sinking. The pool was only 3 meters deep at the deep end. That's about 10 feet. But Akiko kept sinking down, down, down into impossible darkness. She looked up. The surface was so far away, hundreds of feet above her. How was that possible? She was in a swimming pool, not the ocean. But down she went, the pressure building in her ears, her lungs starting to burn. And then she saw them. Bodies, floating in the dark water below her. Students in Yamamoto Academy uniforms. Their eyes were open. Their mouths were moving like they were trying to speak. Their hands reached up toward her. Akiko recognized some of the faces. There was Yuki Yamamoto, a student who had drowned in this pool in 1973. How did Akiko know that? She'd never heard of Yuki Yamamoto before. But somehow she knew. She knew his name. She knew he was practicing for a competition when he got a cramp and went under. She knew the janitor found him the next morning. There was Mei Suzuki, who slipped and hit her head in 1981. There was little Taro Ishida, only 12 years old, who somehow got into the pool after hours in 1995. The security cameras showed him entering the building but never leaving. They found him floating the next morning. They were all here. Every student who had ever died in this pool. And they were looking at her, reaching for her, their mouths moving in silent words. "Join us," they seemed to say. "Stay with us." "Don't leave us alone!" Akiko screamed underwater. Bubbles exploded from her mouth. She turned and swam up with every bit of strength she had. Her lungs were on fire. Her vision was going black around the edges. The surface seemed to get farther away instead of closer. The dead students followed her. She could feel them behind her, their cold fingers brushing against her feet. One grabbed her ankle. The hand was soft and swollen, like a rotten fruit. Akiko kicked hard and broke free. She swam harder than she'd ever swum in any race, harder than when she won the national championship, harder than humanly possible. And finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds, she broke the surface. She gasped for air and swam to the edge. The pool was only 10 feet deep again. Normal depth, normal temperature according to the thermometer. But Akiko was freezing. Her whole body was shaking. She pulled herself out of the pool and collapsed on the tile floor. When she looked back at the water, it was clear. Perfect normal pool water, no bodies, no darkness, nothing. But on her ankle, where the dead student had grabbed her, there was a mark. A handprint, black and blue like a bruise, but shaped exactly like a small hand. Akiko grabbed her towel and ran. She ran out of the pool area, not even stopping to change. She ran through the empty school in her swimsuit, her bare feet slapping on the floor. She ran all the way to the principal's office and pounded on the door until Mr. Sato arrived at 7 a.m. They thought she'd had a panic attack, maybe a seizure. They called her parents. They called a doctor. The doctor said she was suffering from stress and exhaustion. Too much training, too much pressure. She needed rest. But that afternoon, they drained the pool for maintenance. It was routine maintenance, they said, already scheduled, nothing to do with Akiko's episode. When they drained the pool, they found something at the bottom. Scratches in the tiles, deep scratches that spelled out names: Yuki Yamamoto, Mei Suzuki, Taro Ishida, and dozens of other names, all students who had died at the school over the years, some in the pool, some in other parts of the building. All their names carved into the bottom of the pool, and in the center, carved deeper than the others, fresher than the others, was one more name: Akiko Tanaka. Akiko never swam again. Not in pools, not in the ocean, not even in the bathtub. She quit the swim team that day. She gave up her scholarship. She gave up her Olympic dreams. Her parents were furious. Her coach begged her to reconsider. But Akiko couldn't even look at water without remembering those dead faces, those reaching hands, that impossible depth. The school filled in the pool 3 months later. They said it was for budget reasons. Maintenance was too expensive. But the construction workers told different stories. They said the pool wouldn't stay empty. They would drain it at night and find it full in the morning. The water would appear from nowhere, black water that smelled like death. They built a gymnasium over where the pool used to be. Students play basketball there now. They run and jump and laugh. But sometimes on quiet days you can hear it, the sound of water, splashing. And if you put your ear to the floor, some say you can hear voices, children's voices, calling from deep below, "Come swim with us. The water's fine. We're so lonely down here. Come swim with us." The handprint on Akiko's ankle never went away. It faded over time, but you can still see it if you know where to look. She's 36 now, living in Osaka, working as an accountant. A normal life, a safe life, a dry life. But every November 13th, she gets a text message. The same message every year, from a number that doesn't exist, from a phone that can't be traced. "We're still waiting for you in the water. Your name is carved here. Come home." She changes her phone number. She moves apartments. But the message always finds her. And each year, the handprint on her ankle gets a little darker, a little clearer. Like something is pulling her back. Like something is getting stronger. She knows that one day she'll have to go back. One day the pull will be too strong to resist. One day, she'll find herself standing at the edge of that filled-in pool, and the ground will open up, and the black water will be waiting. But not today. Not yet. She's still fighting. Still running. Still staying dry, but for how much longer? Story 3. The substitute teacher. Every student knows that feeling when you walk into class and see a substitute teacher. Sometimes you're happy because it means an easy day. Sometimes you're annoyed because it means busy work. But for the students in Mrs. Peterson's 8th grade history class at Woodfield Middle School in Austin, Texas, seeing a substitute teacher would become the most terrifying experience of their lives. It was Monday, October 5th, 2009. A normal Monday morning. Kids were tired from the weekend. Nobody wanted to be there. The bell rang at 8:15 a.m., and students shuffled into their classrooms like zombies. But when they walked into room 237, they stopped in confusion. Mrs. Peterson wasn't there. Instead, standing at the front of the room was a man none of them had ever seen before. He was tall. Really tall. Maybe 6.5 feet. He was wearing a black suit that looked expensive but old-fashioned, like something from the 1950s. His skin was pale. Not just white person pale. Pale like paper. Pale like he'd never seen the sun. His hair was black and slicked back with so much gel it looked wet. And his eyes. Jennifer Blake sat in the 3rd row. She was 13 years old, smart, observant. She was the first to really notice his eyes. They were gray, but not a normal gray. They were like looking at static on an old TV, like they were moving even when he was standing still. "Good morning, class," the man said. His voice was deep and smooth, like honey poured over gravel. "My name is Mr. Gray. I'll be your substitute teacher while Mrs. Peterson is ill." The students looked at each other. Mrs. Peterson had seemed fine on Friday. She never missed school. In 3 years, she'd never taken a single sick day. "Please take out your textbooks and turn to page 237, Mr. Gray said. Jennifer thought it was weird that he knew exactly what page they were on. Substitutes usually had no idea what the class was studying. They usually just gave them worksheets or showed a movie. But Mr. Gray seemed to know exactly where they were in their Civil War unit. He began to lecture about the Battle of Gettysburg. But it wasn't like a normal lecture. He described the battle like he'd been there. He talked about the smell of gunpowder and blood. He described the sound of cannonballs tearing through human bodies. He told them about soldiers crying for their mothers as they died in the mud. The ground was soaked with blood, he said, and his gray eyes seemed to shine. So much blood that your boots would sink into the mud. Red mud, sticky, warm. Some students looked uncomfortable. This was way too graphic for 8th grade, but others were fascinated. They'd never had a teacher talk like this before. It was like watching a horror movie in class. Then Mr. Gray started asking questions, but not normal questions about dates and battles. "How many of you have nightmares?" he asked. A few kids raised their hands hesitantly. "What do you dream about? Tell me." One boy, Marcus, said he sometimes dreamed about falling. Mr. Gray smiled. It was not a nice smile. His teeth were perfect. Too white. Too sharp. "Falling," Mr. Gray repeated. "Yes, the sensation of falling into darkness. Into nothing. Do you wake up before you hit the ground, Marcus?" Marcus nodded, looking scared now. "Good. Because if you don't wake up, if you hit the ground in your dream, you die in real life. Did you know that?" The class was silent. This was getting weird. Really weird. Mr. Gray continued asking strange questions. He wanted to know who lived alone with single parents. He wanted to know who had pets that had died. He wanted to know who was afraid of the dark. Jennifer noticed something else. Mr. Gray never blinked. She started timing it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. His eyes stayed open, staring, never blinking once, and he never moved when he talked. His body was completely still, only his mouth moved, like a ventriloquist's dummy. At the end of class, as students were packing up, Mr. Gray said something that made everyone freeze. "Before you go, I have a special assignment for you. Tonight, I want you to write about your worst fear, your deepest, darkest fear, the thing that scares you more than anything else. Be specific. Be detailed. I want to know everything." "Is this for a grade?" asked a girl named Ashley. Mr. Gray turned his head to look at her. Just his head. His body stayed perfectly still. It was like his head was on a swivel. "Everything is for a grade, Ashley. Everything you do. Everything you think. Everything you fear. It's all being graded." The bell rang and students practically ran out of the room. Everyone except Jennifer. She stayed behind, pretending to organize her backpack. She wanted to see what Mr. Gray did when he thought he was alone. He stood at the front of the room, not moving. Not even breathing, as far as Jennifer could tell. Then slowly his head started to turn, all the way around, 180 degrees, like an owl. He was looking directly at her even though his body was facing the blackboard. "You're very observant, Jennifer," he said. His voice was different now, older, ancient. "That's dangerous. Observation leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to fear. And fear leads to me." Jennifer grabbed her backpack and started backing toward the door. "Your assignment is different," Mr. Gray said. His head was still backwards on his body. "I want you to write about what you've observed. About me. Write down everything you've noticed. Every detail." "Why?" Jennifer whispered. "Because I'm curious what you'll see. What you'll understand. Most humans are blind. But you have the sight. You can see things that shouldn't be seen." Jennifer's hand found the doorknob. "Don't leave yet," Mr. Gray said, and the door slammed shut. Not like someone had pushed it. Like the door itself had decided to close. The windows followed, blinds snapping down with violent force. The lights went out. In the darkness, Jennifer heard Mr. Gray's voice. But it wasn't coming from where he'd been standing. It was coming from everywhere. From the walls. From the floor. From inside her own head. "Do you know what I am, Jennifer?" She shook her head, even though he couldn't see her in the dark. Or could he? "I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for a very long time. Longer than this school has existed. Longer than this country has existed. I teach very specific lessons to very specific students." Something cold touched Jennifer's face. Like fingers, but not solid. Like frozen air in the shape of a hand. "You're going to learn something today. Something important. Something that will change everything you thought you knew about the world." The lights came back on. Mr. Gray was sitting at his desk, looking normal again. His head was facing the right way. He was even blinking. The door was open. The windows were normal. "Have a nice day, Jennifer," he said pleasantly, like nothing had happened. Don't forget your assignment, Jennifer ran. She ran straight to the principal's office and told them everything. Principal Davies looked concerned. She called the district office. They said they hadn't sent any substitute named Mr. Gray. They hadn't sent any substitute at all. When Principal Davies and 2 security guards went to room 237, it was empty. Mr. Gray was gone. His name wasn't on the sign-in sheet at the front office. The security cameras showed students sitting in class, looking at an empty space where the teacher should be, taking notes from a blackboard that seemed to write itself. They interviewed every student from the class. Most couldn't really remember what Mr. Gray looked like. Some said he was short and fat. Others said he was tall and thin. Some said he was young. Others said he was old. Their memories were all mixed up, confused, like someone had scrambled them. Only Jennifer remembered clearly. Every detail, every word, every impossible thing she'd seen. That night, she did the assignment. She wrote down everything about Mr. Gray, the way he didn't blink, the way his head turned too far, the way he knew things he shouldn't know. She wrote until her hand cramped, filling page after page. At exactly midnight, the pages disappeared from her desk. One moment they were there, the next gone. In their place was a single sheet of paper with 2 words written in red ink. Good job. Jennifer started having nightmares after that, the same dream every night. She was in room 237 and Mr. Gray was there. But in the dreams, he didn't look human anymore. He was something else. Something with too many eyes and too many teeth and shadows that moved wrong. You can see me, he would say in the dreams. That means I can see you. I can always see you now. You're marked. You're mine. The dreams went on for months. Jennifer's parents took her to doctors, therapists, even a priest. Nothing helped. She was afraid to sleep, afraid to close her eyes. Because every time she did, Mr. Gray was waiting. Then, exactly 1 year later, on October 5th, 2010, the dream stopped. Just like that. Jennifer woke up feeling normal for the first time in a year. She thought she was finally free, until she looked at her homework. Written across every page, in handwriting she didn't recognize, were the same words over and over. See you in 10 years. We have more lessons to learn. Jennifer is 28 now. She's a teacher herself, working at a small elementary school in California. She loves her job. She loves her students. She tries not to think about Mr. Gray. But last month, on October 5th, 2024, her principal called her into the office. Jennifer, we have a new substitute teacher starting tomorrow. He specifically requested to observe your class. Says he knows you from Texas. A Mr. Gray? Jennifer quit that day, packed up her apartment, changed her name, moved to Canada, but she knows it won't matter. He'll find her. He always finds his students when it's time for the next lesson. And deep down, in a part of her mind she tries to ignore, she's curious. What will the next lesson be? What will she learn? What will she become? Because Mr. Gray was right about one thing. She can see things others can't. And once you have the sight, you can never close your eyes again. Story 4. The Locked Door. Some doors should never be opened. That's the first thing they tell you when you arrive at Blackwood boarding school in England. They tell you about the rules, about the traditions, about the history, and they tell you about the door on the 4th floor of the East Wing. The door that's been locked since 1952. The door that nobody talks about. The door that should never, ever be opened. Oliver Hartwell thought it was all nonsense. Ghost stories to scare the new students. He was 15 years old, smart, logical. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses or any of that stuff. He believed in science, in facts, in things you could prove. That's why when his roommate David dared him to spend an hour sitting by the locked door at midnight on Halloween, Oliver said yes immediately. 50 pounds says you won't last 10 minutes, David said, grinning. Make it 100 and you're on, Oliver replied. David laughed. Deal. But when you come running back screaming like a little girl, don't say I didn't warn you. Blackwood boarding school was old, really old, built in 1847 on the ruins of a monastery that had been there since the 1300s. The building looked like something out of a horror movie. Gray stone walls covered in ivy, narrow windows that looked like eyes, gargoyles on the roof that seemed to watch you wherever you went. Even in bright sunshine, the place looked dark and creepy. The locked door was famous. Every student knew about it. It was at the end of a long hallway on the 4th floor of the east wing. The door itself was weird. It was painted over so many times that the paint had formed thick ridges and bumps, like scar tissue, like the building was trying to heal over a wound. There was a massive padlock on it, rusty and old. The metal plate where the doorknob should be was welded shut. The older students told stories about what was behind the door. Some said it was where they used to punish students back in the old days. Some said a student had gone crazy and killed a teacher in that room. Some said if you put your ear to the door at midnight, you could hear crying, or screaming, or scratching. But the most popular story was about Timothy Ashford. According to the legend, Timothy was a student in 1952. He was 13 years old, small for his age, quiet. The other boys picked on him, called him names, pushed him around. One night, a group of older boys decided to play a prank. They told Timothy about a secret room on the 4th floor. A room full of treasure, old coins and jewelry hidden by monks hundreds of years ago. Timothy believed them. He snuck out of his dormitory at midnight and went to the 4th floor. The older boys had picked the lock on the door. They told Timothy the treasure was inside. He just had to go in and get it. Timothy went in. The boys slammed the door shut and locked it. They laughed and ran away, planning to let him out in an hour or two. Just enough time to scare him, but when they came back, they couldn't open the door. The lock was jammed, or frozen, or something. They tried everything. They even got tools from the maintenance room. Nothing worked. The door wouldn't open. They could hear Timothy inside, crying, begging to be let out. Then screaming. Then nothing. They ran to get help. But by the time the teachers arrived, by the time they finally got the door open, Timothy was gone. Not dead, gone. The room was empty. Just 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. No windows. No other doors. No way out except the door they'd just opened. They searched everywhere. The whole school. The grounds, the town. Timothy Ashford had vanished. The only thing they found was scratches on the inside of the door. Scratches that spelled out 2 words. Still here. The school covered it up. Told Timothy's parents he'd run away. Had the door locked and sealed. Forbade anyone from going near it. And for over 70 years, the door had stayed locked. Until tonight. Oliver made his way through the dark hallways at 11:55 p.m. He had a flashlight, a book to read, and a watch to time his hour. The school was quiet. Everyone was asleep. His footsteps echoed on the old wooden floors. He reached the 4th floor and walked down the long hallway. At the end, lit by a single dying light bulb, was the door. It looked exactly like everyone described. Thick with paint. Massive padlock. Something about it made Oliver uncomfortable, but he pushed the feeling away. It was just a door. An old locked door. He sat down with his back against the opposite wall and checked his watch. Midnight. The first few minutes were boring. Oliver opened his book and started reading by flashlight. The building made its usual old building sounds, creaking, settling, wind rattling the windows. Nothing scary, nothing unusual. Then, at 12:17 a.m., he heard it, 3 soft knocks from behind the door. Oliver looked up. Probably David, trying to scare him. He ignored it and went back to his book. The knocks came again. Louder this time, more insistent. "Very funny, David," Oliver called out. "I know it's you." The knocking stopped. Then a voice. Muffled, like someone speaking through thick cloth. "Please, let me out." It wasn't David's voice. It was younger. A child's voice. Scared, desperate. "Who's there?" Oliver asked, standing up. "My name is Timothy. Timothy Ashford. I've been in here so long. So long. Please, I just want to come out." Oliver's logical mind kicked in. This was obviously a prank. Someone was messing with him. But the voice sounded so real, so genuinely terrified. "This isn't funny anymore," Oliver said. "Please." The voice was crying now. "It's so dark in here. So cold I can hear them. The others. They're coming for me. Please let me out before they get here." "Others? What others?" Oliver walked closer to the door. He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't. But he couldn't help himself. He pressed his ear against the door. It was ice cold. So cold it burned his skin. And through the door he could hear something. Not just one voice. Many voices, whispering, crying, pleading, "Let us out. Let us out. Let us out." Oliver jerked back. His flashlight flickered and went out. The hallway was plunged into darkness. The only light came from the moon through a window at the far end of the hall. "Look under the door," Timothy's voice said. "Please, just look." Oliver knew this was a bad idea. Every instinct told him to run. But he knelt down. There was a gap under the door, maybe an inch high. He lowered his head to look. A hand shot out from under the door. A small, pale hand with fingernails grown long and yellow. It grabbed Oliver's wrist with impossible strength. The skin was cold and soft, like wet paper. Oliver screamed and tried to pull away, but the hand held tight. "You can see me," Timothy's voice said, but now it wasn't coming from behind the door. It was coming from everywhere, from the walls, from the ceiling, from inside Oliver's head. "That means you're special. That means you can help us." More hands appeared under the door. 2, 3, 6, a dozen, all reaching out, grasping at the air, trying to grab Oliver. "We're not the only ones," Timothy said. "This school is built on old ground. Holy ground. Cursed ground. The monks knew. That's why they built the monastery here, to keep them trapped. But the monastery is gone. Only the door remains, and the door is weakening." The hand suddenly let go. Oliver fell backward, scrambling away from the door. His wrist was marked with bruises in the shape of small fingers. The door began to shake, violently, like something huge was throwing itself against it from the inside. The padlock jumped. The hinges groaned. Paint chips fell like snow. Then Oliver heard it. The sound that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Children laughing. But it wasn't happy laughter. It was wrong, broken, like a record being played backwards. And there were so many voices, not just Timothy, dozens of children, maybe hundreds. "We've been waiting so long," they sang in unison. "So long to play, so long to run, so long to make new friends. Won't you be our friend? Won't you let us out to play?" The light bulb at the end of the hall exploded. In the darkness, Oliver heard the worst sound imaginable. The click of the padlock opening. He ran. He'd never run so fast in his life. Behind him, he heard the door slam open. Heard footsteps. So many footsteps. Small feet running, laughing, calling his name. "Oliver, come play with us!" We know such fun games. He burst into his dormitory and slammed the door. David and his other roommates woke up to find Oliver pressed against the door, crying, shaking, babbling about Timothy Ashford and the locked door. They thought he'd had a nightmare. A panic attack. But then they saw his wrist. The bruises. The perfect outline of a child's hand printed in purple and black on his skin. The next morning, the headmaster came to see Oliver personally. The locked door, he said, was still locked, still secure. Nothing had happened. Oliver must have imagined it. Stress from studies, lack of sleep. But Oliver saw the fear in the headmaster's eyes. He knew. They all knew. Oliver was transferred to a day school in London the next week. The official reason was family circumstances. But before he left, he did research in the school library. What he found terrified him. Blackwood Boarding School was built on the site of St. Bartholomew's Monastery. The monastery had been there since 1347, built after the Black Death. The monks had built it there for a specific reason. There was something about that land. Something wrong. Local legends said it was a thin place. A place where the barrier between our world and other places was weak. The monks had built the monastery to guard it. To keep things from coming through, they had performed rituals, said prayers, kept watch. But in 1845, the monastery was destroyed, torn down to build the school. They kept one thing from the original building. A door. A special door that the monks had marked with symbols. A door that was never supposed to be opened. That door was now the locked door on the 4th floor. Oliver found more. Records of missing students over the years. Not runaways. Not transfers. Missing. Gone. Always. Last seen near the east wing. Always near that door. 67-3. Students vanished during a midnight dare. Mighty 1. Tuakor. Boys disappear after reporting. Strange sounds. From the 4th floor. 23. Entire dormitory of 6 students goes missing. Overnight, 1952, Timothy. Ashford. And those were just the ones that were recorded. How many more had there been? How many children had that door taken? Oliver graduated and went to university. Became an engineer. got married, had kids, tried to forget about Blackwood, but he couldn't. Because every year on Halloween he gets a letter. No postmark, no return address, just his name written in a child's handwriting. Inside is always the same message. We're still waiting for you to come play. The door is always open for friends. Timothy. In 2010, Oliver heard that Blackwood was closing. Financial troubles, they said. But Oliver knew better. He'd kept in touch with some other old students. The stories had gotten worse. Students seeing children who weren't there, hearing voices in empty rooms, finding old toys in their beds, toys from the 1950s. The school was demolished in 2011. They tore down everything, even the east wing, even the fourth floor, even the locked door. But Oliver knows something the demolition crew doesn't. You can't destroy a door that exists in more than one place. You can't close a passage that was never fully in our world to begin with. The school is gone. But on the land where it stood, people report strange things. Children playing in the ruins at night, laughter from nowhere, and sometimes, just sometimes, people see a door, standing alone in an empty field, old, painted over many times, with a broken padlock hanging from its latch. And if you're foolish enough to approach it, if you're brave enough or stupid enough to touch that handle, you'll hear them. The children, Timothy and all the others, still playing, still waiting, still looking for new friends to join their games. Oliver is 60 now. He's never gone back to that place. Never will. But sometimes, late at night, he wakes up to the sound of knocking at his bedroom door. Soft knocking. Child-sized fists on wood, Oliver. A young voice whispers. We found you. We'll always find you. The door is open. Come play with us. He doesn't answer. He never answers. Because he knows that if he does, if he speaks to them even once, they'll never stop. They'll never leave him alone. And one day, when he's old and weak and tired, he might give in. He might open his door to find another door behind it. An old door, painted over many times, with a broken padlock, and Timothy Ashford waiting on the other side, still 13 years old, still smiling, still wanting to play. Story 5. The Last Bell. This final story is the most recent. It happened in 2015 in South Korea. You might have even seen it on the news, though they didn't tell you the whole truth. They never do. They said it was exam stress. They said it was a mental breakdown. They said a lot of things. But I know what really happened, because I've read the police reports. I've seen the security footage. I've talked to the survivors. And what really happened at Gwangju Technical High School that December night is more terrifying than anything the news reported. Kim Min-jun was 18 years old. He was what they call a model student. Perfect grades, perfect attendance, perfect future planned out. He was going to Seoul National University. He was going to be a doctor. His parents had saved every penny for his education. He couldn't let them down. That's why he studied so hard. That's why he stayed at school until 2 or 3 in the morning every night. In South Korea, this is normal. Students study until they collapse. They sleep 3 or 4 hours a night. They take pills to stay awake. They drink coffee until their hands shake. The pressure is insane. The competition is brutal. One bad test score can ruin your entire life. That's not an exaggeration. That's reality. Gwangju Technical High School understood this pressure. That's why they kept the building open 24 hours a day. They had special study rooms where students could work all night. The school was modern, built in 2010. Everything was high-tech. Keycard entry, security cameras everywhere, motion sensors, automatic lights. It was supposed to be safe. December 15th, 2015 was the coldest night of the year. Snow was falling heavy and thick. The city was buried under a white blanket. Most students had gone home early because of the weather. But not Min-jun. He had a calculus exam in 3 days. He needed every minute to study. He was in study room 7 on the 3rd floor. It was his favorite room. Quiet. Good heating. A view of the snow-covered courtyard. He'd been there since 6 p.m. By 2 a.m., he was the only student left in the building. Just him, his textbooks, and his coffee. At exactly 2 a.m., something happened that shouldn't have been possible. The school bell rang, not the normal bell. The school had an electronic bell system that played a pleasant chime. This was different. This was an old-fashioned bell. Like a church bell, deep and resonant. It echoed through the empty hallways. Min-jun looked up from his textbook. The bell system shut off at 6 p.m. every day. It was programmed that way. It couldn't ring at 2 a.m. It was impossible. The bell rang for 30 seconds, then stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the sound. Minjun tried to go back to studying, but he couldn't concentrate. Something felt wrong. The air felt heavy, electric, like right before a thunderstorm. At 2:15 a.m., the bell rang again. This time it was accompanied by something else. Footsteps, not one or two people. Many people, walking in perfect synchronization. Like soldiers marching, the sound echoed through the hallways, getting closer to study room 7. Minjun stood up and looked through the small window in the door. The hallway was empty. The motion sensor lights were off, but the footsteps continued. Hundreds of them. Right outside his door, then the lights turned on. The hallway was full of students. But something was wrong. They were transparent, see-through, like projections, like holograms. But holograms don't make footstep sounds. Holograms don't have shadows. They were all walking in the same direction, toward the stairwell. Their faces were blank. No expression, no emotion. Their eyes were open but empty, like doll's eyes. Minjun recognized some of them. There was Park Ji-ho, who had jumped from the roof last year. There was Lee Sun-mi, who had taken pills in the bathroom. There was Choi Dong-hyun, who had hung himself in the gymnasium. All students who had committed suicide. All victims of the pressure, the stress, the impossible expectations. But there were others too. Students in older uniforms from the 1990s, the 1980s, even older. That's when Minjun realized something that made his blood freeze. Gwangju Technical High School was built in 2010. It was only 5 years old. Where were these other students from? He grabbed his laptop and searched frantically. What he found changed everything. The school was built on the site of Gwangju Provincial High School, which had stood from 1955 to 2009. Before that, it had been Gwangju Middle School from 1923 to 1954. Before that, a Japanese school during the occupation. The land had been used for education for over 100 years, and in all that time, there had been suicides. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Students who couldn't handle the pressure, who saw no way out except death. They were all here, all walking through the hallways of a school that wasn't even their school. Trapped. Repeating their final moments over and over. The bell rang again. 2:30 a.m., this time the ghosts stopped walking. They all turned. All looked directly at Minjun's door, hundreds of dead eyes staring at him through the window. One of them raised a hand and knocked. "Join us," a voice said. Not one voice. All of them, speaking in perfect unison. The pressure ends here. The pain stops. No more tests, no more failure, just peace. Minjun backed away from the door. His hands were shaking. Not from coffee this time. From fear, the doorknob turned. The door was locked, but it opened anyway. The ghosts filed into the room. They surrounded him. Their faces were changing now, showing how they died. Rope marks on necks, foam on lips, blood from wrists. "You're so tired," they said together. "So tired of fighting. So tired of trying. We understand. We were tired too, but now we rest. Forever." One of them held out a hand. Park Ji-ho. Minjun had known him. They'd studied together sometimes. "It's easy," Ji-ho said. His neck was bent at a wrong angle from his fall. "Just take my hand. It'll be over in seconds. No more pain. No more disappointment. Your parents will understand. Everyone will understand." Minjun's phone rang. The sudden sound broke whatever spell was happening. The ghosts stepped back, hissing like angry cats. Minjun grabbed his phone. It was his mother. "Minjun, are you still at school? Mom?" His voice was shaking. "I had a bad dream about you. Are you okay?" The ghosts were changing, getting angry. Their faces were twisting into something horrible. Something inhuman. "Mom, The phone went dead. Minjun looked at the screen. It showed the date as December 15th, 1987, the year Park Ji-ho's father had killed himself. He'd been a student too. The pressure never ended. Generation after generation. The same pain, the same desperation. The lights went out. In the darkness, Minjun heard them moving, surrounding him, touching him with cold, dead hands. "Join us. Join us! Join us!" Minjun ran. He burst through the circle of ghosts and ran into the hallway. They followed. Hundreds of them. Their footsteps shook the building. Their voices merged into one terrible sound. He ran down the stairs. The ghosts poured after him like water. He could feel their cold breath on his neck. Their fingers pulling at his clothes. The main door was locked. Of course it was locked. You needed a key card to get out after midnight. Minjun fumbled for his card. Dropped it. The ghosts were getting closer. He found the card. Swiped it. Nothing. The reader was dead. No power. The ghosts surrounded him. There was nowhere to run. You belong with us, they said. You've always belonged with us. Every student who stays this late, every student who pushes this hard, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Minjun closed his eyes. He thought about his parents. His little sister, his dreams of being a doctor. Was it worth it? All this pressure? All this pain? Then he remembered something his grandmother once told him. The dead have power only if you give it to them. They feed on despair. Fight them with hope. Minjun opened his eyes. No, he said. The ghost paused. No, he said louder. I won't join you. I'm alive. I have choices. I can change. I can leave. I can fail my exams and still live. You gave up. I won't, the ghost screamed, a sound like breaking glass, like tearing metal. They rushed at him all at once. Minjun punched the glass door. His hand went through. Blood everywhere, but he didn't care. He reached through, opened the door from outside, and ran into the snow. Behind him, the school lit up. Every light, every room, he could see them in the windows. Hundreds of ghosts, watching him, waiting. They found Minjun 3 hours later, collapsed in the snow 2 miles from school. His hand was badly cut. He was hypothermic. He was babbling about ghosts and bells and dead students. They said it was a psychotic break, exam stress. They said he imagined it all, but the security footage told a different story. The cameras showed Minjun in study room 7. They showed him reacting to something, running from something. But the hallways were empty. Or were they? When investigators enhanced the footage, they found something disturbing. Shadows where there shouldn't be shadows. Figures that appeared for single frames, then vanished. And in the audio, if you turned it up and listened carefully, you could hear it. The bell. Minjun recovered. Physically, anyway. He never went back to school. He gave up his dreams of university. His parents were disappointed but supported him. He works in a bookstore now. A quiet life. A safe life. But every December 15th at exactly 2 a.m., his phone rings. No number. No caller ID. When he answers, all he hears is a bell. And voices. Hundreds of voices. We're still here. Still waiting. The offer stands. The door is always open. He changes his number. Moves to different cities. It doesn't matter. They always find him. Gwangju Technical High School is still open. They've made some changes. No more 24-hour access. Security guards patrol all night. They've brought in priests, shamans, even feng shui experts. But students still report strange things. Bells that ring when they shouldn't. Footsteps in empty hallways. And every year, at least one student reports the same experience. The ghostly army. The invitation to join them, the suicide rate hasn't gone down. If anything, it's gotten worse. Because now the dead have help. They have recruiters. An army of ghosts that grows larger every year. And they're not just at Gwangju. They're at every school where the pressure breaks students. Where young people see death as the only escape. They're waiting, watching, whispering. Join us. It's easier here. No more pain. No more pressure. Just peace. Most students don't listen. Most students are strong enough to resist, but not all. And every student who gives in, who takes that final step, joins the army, becomes another recruiter, another voice in the darkness. The bell rings at 2 a.m. every night. In schools all over the world, you just have to know how to listen for it. And once you hear it, once you really hear it, you can never unhear it again. So there you have it. 5 true stories that prove schools aren't always the safe places we think they are. 5 stories that show sometimes the real education is learning how to survive. I know what you're thinking. These can't all be true. They're too scary, too impossible. And I understand that. Our minds don't want to accept that such things can happen in places we go every day. Places we trust with our children. Places that are supposed to be safe. But I've done my homework. I've read the police reports. I've talked to witnesses. I've seen the evidence. And the truth is scarier than any fiction could ever be. Every school has its secrets. Every hallway has its history. Those old buildings have seen generations of students come and go. And sometimes some of those students leave something behind. Or something finds them there, in those places of learning and growing, where young minds are open and vulnerable. Think about your own school. Those rooms nobody uses, those doors that are always locked, those stories the older students tell. Maybe they're just stories, or maybe, just maybe, they're warnings. If you've had your own experience, something you can't explain, something that still scares you, I want to hear about it. Share it in the comments. You're not alone. There are others who've seen things, heard things, felt things they can't explain. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we know about these things, the better we can protect ourselves and others. Don't let fear control you, but don't ignore your instincts either. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Thank you for staying with me through these dark tales. Thank you for being brave enough to listen. And remember, when you go to school tomorrow, when you walk those familiar hallways, when you sit in those familiar classrooms, you'll know the truth. You'll know that sometimes the most ordinary places hide the most extraordinary horrors. Stay safe, stay aware, and whatever you do, never stay after school alone. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.